Hey, Thomas here with another video for the Artisan Sound channel. And in this video, I'm going to go a little bit beyond the normal scope of just handling sound issues in this channel. And we're going to talk about Qlab and specifically how to handle crisis management in Qlab. What happens and what to do if you have accidentally fired a cue that is going to have bad consequences later on. So how to identify specific items that are playing as timers in the active cue list and how to cancel them if they have been prematurely fired before they can do more further damage further down the road. So if you're interested in learning that, and you should be, because it's just kind of like riding a car, driving a car, riding a motorcycle. If you've always only just practiced driving normal situations, you're going to not be prepared for emergency situations. So you always want to practice emergency braking and emergency handling situations on vehicles. And just the same way, you should practice and learn about what you need to do if something goes wrong in Qlab so that you can handle this properly when it actually happens in a show. And trust me, it will happen, because that's the nature of the live show. So there's no problem with mistakes that happen, but you should learn how to fix them quickly and how to prevent them from having worse consequences than maybe the actual mistake that happened. So if you're interested in that, and you should be, then go ahead and keep watching this video. I'm going to go into this scene here where we had a slight mishap, but just, it doesn't matter. It's just an example. I just want to make sure that we understand something, we learn something about critical crisis management in Qlab. So, okay, let me hit the seller again. I'm getting the seller projections. And now I'm going to hit the next one. Tony exits. And that turned off those projections. And now Tony enters. Maria appears. Gunshot. Okay, I'm going to skip the gunshot. I'm going to hit finale act 1 and finale part 1. Okay, so now here's the problem, right? So what happened is this next cue was fired prematurely. And what you see here on the right side is a list of all the items that are running, that are still on timers, that are going, right? So when you hit this cue prematurely, there are things that are now in the timer list that are running. And a couple of them are probably difficult to identify. But so what I did immediately was I pulled the music volume down so we didn't actually hear the music. So that piece of it was fixed almost instantly. And then this one here, and also probably some of these light cues, probably both of these light cues, these are problematic because they cause the scene to go dark, and the lights turn off and the screen projections fade to black. So these have to be stopped before they actually run to the end of their time. If you don't stop them, they're going to do bad things. Okay. Now, the way you stop them is by over here, you identify them. This here is the music cue. Okay, so a little refinement here. I actually figured something out that I didn't know when I was making the other part of the video. And that is, it depends really on what you're canceling. So like when here's the same group, right, that I'm showing in the video. So I'm firing the group and I see over here are all the items that are running. This is the music, this is the actual group, this is the whole group that's running, and here's the fade that stops the projections. Here are the fades that are going to fade out the lights once they reach the end of their time. And if I just cancel the music, the other components that are running on timers inside the group are still going. They're still continuing on. And so I can still continue to cancel individual components like this light cue here. the projections, and still the group will stay valid when I cancel everything individually. Only when the last item that is still running inside the group is canceled, then also the group is canceled. Or I can go ahead and after I fire this, by the way, this mute here is also supposed to be delayed, so that is fixed in the real session. That would also be a running timer over there. See, now the mute is running here on the timer as well. So, or if you cancel, if you know that the entire group shouldn't be running yet because you fired the group prematurely, then you just cancel the group, and everything that is running as a timer inside the group will then stop. Now let's compare this to the other option. The other option would be hitting the escape button. The escape button stops all queues that are running. So the only difference in this particular case would have been that if you hit escape, and I hit escape right now, then the screen projections also stop. Okay, so that would have been literally the only difference. Now sometimes it's difficult to know when you're in the heat of the moment, and obviously something happens that's not supposed to happen. So it's sometimes difficult to know what the consequences are. What are the queues that are currently running, and which of them are going to have bad results if you let them run without stopping them? And on the other hand, which of them might have bad results if you stop them without letting them run to the end? So in a perfect world, if you're aware of which queue is what and what the purpose is of each queue that is running, you can selectively just cancel the queues that are not supposed to run because they were fired prematurely in this case, right? So you can just individually cancel them and you're fine, and that's the solution, right? So in this case, let's do that whole thing one more time. So from this neighborhood scene here, let's say Tony enters, right? So the projections play. I can't see them, but let's say they're playing, and you see them here, they're playing, right? Now Maria appears, then there's the gunshot. We skip the gunshot. Here's the first finale music that plays. Once this is done, that's when the error happened. Now again, I'm not harping on this particular error. It doesn't matter. Things happen all the time, and that's normal. That's part of the nature of being a live show. But what I am pointing out and trying to help us all learn from is what to do in for crisis management. When something happens that's not supposed to happen, how do you fix that without without having worse consequences than the mistake that happened, right? So again, we're going to fire. Here are the projections that are still running, so they're supposed to continue to run until they're being stopped by this queue, which isn't running yet because we haven't fired this one yet. So I'm firing this one here prematurely, which triggers this fade. So this fade is going to run until whatever the timer that was set to this here. You can't actually see that well, you can here. Well, this is the music cue, and then this fade is somehow in here. So I don't know exactly how they're tied together, but the point is the music shouldn't be playing. So this and this, they should both be stopped. And again, I don't know exactly how they link together, but I'm just going to stop one of them, and it looks like they all stop, and what's left is just the projections that still should be running. And so that is the appropriate solution to prevent the mistake, and then to fix the mistake that immediately happened, and then just go back, locate again to the queue that was fired prematurely, and then you can just fire it again when it's time to fire it, and there you go. That's it. Okay, that's the fix. Okay. So, and again, the other solution now, let's say I fired it again, it was still being fired prematurely. If I hit escape, the only difference is everything stops, but also the projections stop. So that means the stage would go, the projections would go dark. The light are not affected by that. There wasn't a light cue that was running. Light cues are not running as timers. Light cues are only either turn on or turn off, and that can be on a timer, but it's different with with projections. Projections, they have to be on some sort of loop that they have to be running as long as you want the projections to run. But lights are just being turned on or off. It's like mic mutes or unmutes. Okay, so in this particular case, hitting the escape button would not have been terrible. It would have just made the screens go blank, but the scene would have continued, and you could have just located to the cue again that you needed to fire when it was time to fire it, and then there you go. All right, enough of that. Thanks for watching. I think we can all learn from this, and even anyone who has a similar situation ever, you need to kind of just maybe even practice firing something prematurely, look at what is running, practice identifying what shouldn't be running, and then practice canceling that. In some cases it's very urgent, it has to be done very quickly. In this particular case, you actually had about 1.5 minutes to figure this out and to cancel the correct cues and prevent the scene from going dark. And again, it doesn't matter. I'm not harping on the specific handling. I'm just making this as a case study video of what to practice and what to be aware of, so that you can become better at responding to emergency situations that will occur when you're running a show in Qlab from time to time.